Good morning, radio listeners. You're listening to Win FM 98.9, and welcome to this episode of Voices. I am your host for this afternoon, Kevon Brown, and today the topic for discussion is gender-based and domestic violence. Yesterday, November 25th, was the UN International Day for Elimination of Violence Against Women, which started its 16-day activism campaign under the theme Orange the World, Fund, Respond, Prevent, and Collect. One important thing I noticed when reading up on the 16 days of activism was what the UN highlighted as a shadow pandemic, essentially an increase in violence against women during COVID-19. According to UN Women, 1 in 3 women worldwide experience physical or sexual violence, mostly by an intimate partner. However, since the outbreak of COVID-19, emerging data and reports suggest that all types of violence against women and girls has intensified. So now to help me dive deeper into these issues for the first hour of today's Voices, I am joined by guests, representatives from the Business and Professional Women's Club of St. Kitts, Dr. Gishad Pine.
Good morning.
Good morning. And I should be joined via Zoom with attorney Rochelle Duncan in Nevis. She should be joining us shortly. So while we're waiting...
Hi, good morning. I'm here.
Hi, Ms. Duncan. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us. So since we're the three of us all here, I'll have Dr. Gishard introduce herself first, and then I'll have Ms. Duncan introduce herself and tell us a little bit about who you are.
Okay, so I'm June Gishard Pine. I'm a child and family psychologist. I've been working as a child and family psychologist for over 32 years. I spent 54 years in the UK, so you could probably tell from my voice that I'm very anglicized. But I've been living in Eskane for the last 5 years. During my work as a child and family psychologist, I have literally worked with thousands of families, very diverse families, single parent families, multi-generational families, lone parent, lone father, lone mother families, heterosexual families, homosexual families, all sorts of groups of families, fostering families. At the moment, I'm being elected as the chair of the BPW Training and Development Committee, and our role is to promote the educational, social, and empowerment needs of girls and women in St. Kitts, Nevis, and beyond. And this year's focus is on responding to the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, and its effects specifically on girls and women. And last month we had Dawn Williams, who's a member of the BPW St. Kitts, but also more importantly, she's our regional representative for the BPW, so she represents us across the whole of the Americas and Latin America. She talked last month about finances and gave great ideas for creating wealth and long-term financial planning, because many people, both men and women, are in financial crisis at the moment because there has been a lack of planning for both men and women in light of the COVID-19.
I think...
Sorry, I just taken in a phone call there. We know the pandemic has sent at least half of the population of St. Kitts and Nevis into a financial spin. Okay, Rochelle, you're not muted. I've been told to tell you so we can hear what you say. So you have to turn your phone off, I think. Right. So I was just saying that last month we started looking at our response to the pandemic by talking about finances, and this month we're kind of synchronizing with the 16 days of activism the United Nations Women have commenced in relation to domestic violence, which we also acknowledge as BPW St. Kitts has shown a sharp increase in the Federation and beyond. So we're really taking the opportunity to talk about domestic abuse on 2 levels. Yes, it is the 16 days of activism to bring awareness to the need to end domestic violence, but also because, as I said, we've seen an increase here in the Federation, particularly during lockdown, where, as the song goes, there's been for girls and women nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, and so they've been in close proximity to their intimate partners who under a lot of stress has created, there's been lots of violence that's been reported. So that's really why we're here, to talk about the stresses and strains.
Right. And Ms. Duncan?
Good morning again.
Good morning.
So as you would have indicated, I am an attorney at law practicing in the Federation of St. Christopher and Nevis, and I have been working closely along with organizations in Jamaica that deal primarily with women and girls who have been abused, whether sexually or otherwise. So this is an area that I am very passionate about. And yes, the 16 days of advocacy has begun, and we are very happy to be here to join in the discussion and to raise awareness on this issue. November actually is Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Mm-hmm.
So everything is just happening at the right time in regards to this conversation that we're having today. Domestic violence is an issue that has plagued our society for many years, but I want to drive home the fact that domestic violence is not necessarily a problem, but it is a crime. And this is something that we need to reinforce within our society so that we can make a move towards eradicating domestic violence. Now, I believe that in order to eradicate domestic violence, it can only be accomplished through the development of socio-legal and psychological responses. So I guess after saying that, it is good that myself being here as an attorney and Dr. June being a psychologist, it's a good way to initiate the conversation. But also we are realizing that in our society, certain victims of domestic violence, we tend to talk about women, but we don't necessarily recognize that men and children are also victims of domestic violence as well.
Correct.
So we want to encourage persons who are victims, notwithstanding of your sex, age, or anything of the like. We want to encourage people to come forward and to speak up about this, because there are institutions that are in place that are here to help, that are here to counsel and provide any type of support that we're able to provide. But we do recognize certain drawbacks and certain fears that persons might have: the fear of embarrassment, the lack of trust in the system generally. But by this conversation that we're having today, and we will continue to have, it's about building trust, and it's about sensitization, and it's about learning about this issue together and working on essentially finding a solution to this problem.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Duncan. And you raised an interesting point about certain stigmatizations that people who suffer from domestic violence face. And it's one of the most unfortunate parts of the situation where the victims are blamed and shamed. I say both. They are blamed and shamed for something that was beyond their control. What are your thoughts on that?
Victim blaming is a very interesting subgroup of this issue, because victims are not just blamed by persons in society, but they're blamed by their perpetrators as well. Their perpetrators tend to use emotional attachment and blaming the victim as their reason for exerting force or exerting abuse on them, which is fundamentally wrong, and which is why they are fearful, and which is why they have drawbacks in reporting these things, because they're not just being abused by whichever means, because we know that abuse is not just physical, it can be psychological, sexual, or financial, but they're also impacted psychologically by the blaming that is going on in the relationship, by their abuser saying, it is because you did this, that is why I'm abusing you. Essentially, it is because of your actions or your inactions why I'm exerting this force on you. And it is really sad. However, as I said before, there are institutions and persons from our group, business and professional women, who are willing to provide support and provide help, such as Dr. June. She's a professional psychologist. You know, there are persons and organizations that are here to help and basically just bring you through these terrible experiences that you are having.
Thank you, Ms. Duncan. Before I go to Dr. Gishad Pine, I would like to remind the listening audience that they are free to call in and ask any questions that they have for these two guests this morning. But Dr. Gishad Pine, as a psychologist, what is your view on the concept of victim blaming and victim shaming? And
I think what happens across most of the world is that domestic abuse isn't taken seriously. I think, as Rochelle said, it's not just a problem, it's a crime. If you've been victimized and violated, and then you go and make a complaint about it, that this is an illegal thing that's happened to me, and the legal forces do nothing about it or belittle you or humiliate you, then you're not going to have any confidence in making complaints about it when it happens usually for the second, third, fourth, and fifth times, and so on. So the victim blaming, we're all responsible. We're all responsible. The authorities are responsible. Our families are responsible. We should have more mothers and fathers saying it's completely intolerable and acceptable that you're putting your hand on my child, whether it's a young child or an adult child. So we're responsible as a community. When we hear this thing happening, we need to feel confident as well in calling the authorities to put an end to this. So the victimization, the secondary victimization happens because nobody pays it any mind, nobody takes it very seriously. And that is also part of the cycle of abuse that maintains this abuse, because nobody wants to speak out, because nobody's going to listen. So that is my kind of angle on victim blaming.
okay, and one of the most troubling things that I've observed is the question or the statement that if somebody is doing something to you, you should just leave, as if it's the easiest thing in the world for that person to leave. Could we speak more about that and why it would be so the listening audience can understand why it is not easy for a person to just leave?
I don't know, Rochelle, if you want to take that first.
Well, as you said, it's much easier said than done, because we know that many times victims of domestic violence are dependent on their partner, which is why they choose to stay and why they have no other option. So they might not necessarily have anywhere else to go. They are perhaps financially and emotionally dependent on their partner, and oftentimes they have children with their partner, so they are concerned about the welfare and well-being of their children if they are to leave that household or leave that situation, because they're worried and frustrated with concerns about the well-being of not just themselves but their children. And we know, as most parents will say, that they are willing to put their children's well-being before their own. So persons are plagued with a lot of things just going on in their own heads about this situation. It's not just that they're experiencing it and it's a horrible experience, but it's about survival. So and this is where they might have difficulty in leaving that situation, because they don't see another way of surviving without that partner.
I think each relationship has its own unique set of fingerprints, and some people will find it difficult to leave because they will feel an overwhelming sense of failure. Some people are in partnerships they got no business being in, and if it doesn't succeed, they feel everyone's going to say, well, I told you shouldn't have been with him, or you shouldn't be with her, and what you're doing. So that sense of shame as well is out there, not just from the actual physical violence, but the fact that the relationship itself was not a positive relationship. There's lots and lots of reasons, as Rochelle just pointed out. There are financial reasons, and most women just want the violence to stop. Most women feel a strong emotional connection to the abuser, And when they have children, some of them feel a sense of obligation not to rip the family apart.
All right.
And say, well, he doesn't hit the children. Sometimes he doesn't, sometimes he does. But they don't want to put their children through the upheaval and the uncertainty. Where am I going to live? How am I going to survive? How am I going to feed my children if I don't have this money, and so on. So there's as many reasons as couples, as families. And I think domestic violence is seen as this kind of monolithic thing where, you know, it's just a man hitting a woman, or a partner hitting another partner, whether it's same sex or woman to man, etc. But it's actually a very complex situation that we need to kind of look at each relationship and deconstruct each relationship to understand exactly what is going. Because Jamaicans, Rochelle will know, have a saying, "Doppy know who to frighten." And some men will be in a relationship, he would never think of touching that woman. But then he'll be in a relationship with another woman, and he thinks he has the right to put his hands on her. So it's very complicated, and we really need to kind of shine a light on each individual relationship to understand what starts it and what maintains it.
All right. Again, please, I understand that this is a touchy topic for some people, but we are entertaining call-ins. Please call in and ask any questions that you might have, or voice any opinions that you have. The local call-in numbers are 466-0989, 662-0989, 762-0989. Or if you are in the diaspora in the US, the UK, or Canada, the numbers to call are 0333 344 0065, 718 285 6984, or 305 921 4619. Please call in and ask any questions that you may have, or address any concerns. And both of you touched on certain things as it relates to domestic violence and gender, as it relates to misconceptions, certain misconceptions that people may have. What are some, in your experience, your personal experience, your professional experience, what are some of the misconceptions that people have about gender-based violence or domestic violence?
Okay, I think one thing I need to explain is that most of my context on domestic violence comes from what happens in the UK. I'm not just emphasizing that it's particularly different, but I want to just put that out there, that a lot of my experience comes from what I've seen in the UK. Some of the misconceptions are about size. That he's big, so it's bound to be true. But if he's little, or what we call in the UK weedy, they won't believe that he really can be abusing his wife and his children. You know, that kind of thing. He's a zealot. He goes to church. He may be even at the front of the pulpit. So he can't possibly, because he's a holy man or whatever. Could be to do with profession. One thing about this secondary pandemic, as the UN is calling it, it actually literally shows that domestic abuse does not discriminate. It's happening across all ethnic groups, all religious groups, same-sex partners in heterosexual groups also, all professional groups at all income levels is happening. So it just doesn't discriminate. So some of that misconception is that it will happen mostly, it does happen mostly in poor families. It's certainly disclosed more in poorer families. But one of the big misconceptions is it doesn't happen in sophisticated families. And, you know, we know from growing up in the UK about the high-profile king that chop off his own wife's head. You know, so we know this thing has been going on, and it's been in the public domain for a very long time. And what we think about it also makes a difference. We need to actually accept there is no moral or legal defense for domestic abuse, and that's what's going to take us forward in looking at this more closely.
Okay. Ms. Duncan?
I agree 100% with Dr. June. Those are some of the common misconceptions that we have, that certain men will do it. For example, if a man or woman, because as I said before, it's not just women who experience this. But if there's one partner who is not earning as much as the other partner, then they would feel some sort of inadequacy, and then that will result in violence. That might be true in a lot of instances, but it's not necessarily that it happens 100% of the time. And as Dr. June also said, it is a misconception where we think if one person has a certain job or earns a certain amount of money, then it is far beyond them to do anything like this. But then in these circumstances, we have to also remember that domestic violence is not physical alone. It is sexual, it is psychological. It involves threat, it involves coercion, it involves a deprivation of liberty.
Okay.
It also involves harassment. So we have to take into consideration that it's not just somebody hitting or punching or kicking you.
We have a caller. Caller, you're live on
Hi, good morning.
Voices.
Hi. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
Smash. I'm doing good, with God. Now, the topic at hand cover all areas of life. Whether you're rich or poor, it happens in those environments. However, I think over the years a culture was created, and therefore you find out it continues. It will take a time to go, but it's not in everybody. Just bear that in mind. It's not every man would want to do like that. I personally do not believe in violence. However, I will tell you straight, everyone has a constitutional right and a God-given right to defend him or herself from attack. Do you agree with that, right?
Right.
We should always remember as well, violence begets violence. Now I believe, this is just me, the situation you spoke about not leaving, it goes beyond maybe the financial support that they might get. But we forget the word love. If someone is in love with someone, sometimes blindness and numbness come to certain things. I don't know if you ever heard that before. It will take someone else to point out something to you, and it will take a while until you realize, look, if this person really loves me, why would he or she want to hurt me? You understand where I'm coming from? So that word love is a powerful tool, because I might say this, I should say this though, sometimes you might love someone, as they say, to the bone, but the person may not love you likewise, and that's where the problem comes in. Yes?
Well,
You might,
I
Go
think that the word love, it's a bit abstract, and in my opinion, the word love is a bit abstract because some people's version of love is completely different to other people's version of love.
but that's why I told you, that's why I tell you, that's why I told you, you might love someone to the bone, but the other person do not love you the same way. So therefore, when you will do any and everything, that person know to a fact that they do not respond the same way to you. So you might find out, just might not washing a cup properly might cause a problem because what happened. Love is not there, because if I love you, well, okay, it's not you, so to speak, but if I love my wife or my girlfriend or whatever, and she just comes in from work and I'm home all the time, why should I jump down her throat for cook food or something when I am there all the time not doing it? That's what I'm talking about. So, yes, we might try to put all kind of breakdown to love, but at the end of the day, love. And if you don't know if you believe in the Bible, but the Bible speaks about all many things, but if you do not have that thing, love, you have a problem. And if you take into your relationship, if somebody do not love the same person on the same equal footing, you have a problem. That is why I say, no one have a right, no adult have a right to, if you're fighting, but I don't believe in violence, so you shouldn't be fighting in the first place, especially if you're in something like that. But things do happen. However, it shouldn't happen, but it does. Now the thing is, how we could stop it. Nature, our natural thing, has a way of doing itself. That's the next thing we might have to bring inside here. What is to constantly saying, it is not fair to be violent against each other. Do unto others as you like others do unto you. That word carries go a long way. Thank you very much for listening. And I hope I kind of maybe put a spin there to maybe you all pull certain things to kind of debate some more to see where it comes from, because the financial thing that you're talking about, yes, that might be a factor. But you could ask a lot of people and you'll always hear them say, I love him, I love her, and that is why. It will take a person. Let me take, for example, addiction. You know, your kids are coming from no addiction. You might wonder why, but the doctor tells you to keep off the alcohol, keep off the rum, as we say. It's damaging your kidney. You understand where I'm coming from? But the person still going about this. And you will want to wonder, but why the doctor talk to you? The person loves the alcohol more than even his life, or her life. That's
Dr. Gisha wanted to say something to you. Hold on, caller.
I think what I'm hearing you say, caller, is that if it's a loving couple, then violence shouldn't be a part of that relationship. I think is that a fair enough summary? And I think in a way that addresses Kevon's question too, because that is another misconception actually, because people will claim that they love another person, and they do all kinds of dreadful things. They have all kind of man and all kind of woman. They abuse them in lots of different ways, not just in violent ways. They abuse them sexually too. So it's another misconception that just because somebody says to another person, I love you, or I believe you love me, that violence is not going to take place. And as Rochelle says, on any level. It's a big misconception.
You can love someone to the bone, but the other person may not love you to the bone.
What I'm saying is that you can have two people that genuinely believe that they're in love with each other, but still it's a violent.
Genuinely believe. What about genuinely knowing?
But how do you genuinely know? I could say genuinely know. Okay, thank you for calling.
Well, as he was talking about love, one point popped into my head. We, as I said, love is an abstract idea, and so we learn to love from whatever we absorb, whatever examples we get from the outside. That's how we learn to love. So the idea of love could come from a pre-existing unhealthy relationship, or some other examples that might be out there that a person believes that this is a way to love. It's natural for me to act this way or whatever. What are your views on that?
I think that's true, and I think I want to underline my point that each relationship has its own set of fingerprints. So as a man moves from woman to woman, or a woman moves from man to man, they create a whole new set of fingerprints. So this whole idea of how they feel about each other will alter according to what they believe enhances that relationship, what they believe is the thing that keeps them there in that relationship, or what they believe is the best of that relationship or the worst of that relationship. It's so individual that it's hard to prescribe this is exactly what a loving relationship is likely to look like. I wish we could. People take their vows and love their partner in the way we expect them to, with kindness, nurturing them, giving them, lifting their self-esteem up and so on. But it's just not that simple. We wish it was that simple.
We have a caller. Caller, you're live on Voices.
Good morning, Devon.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, good morning.
And good morning to your guests.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Now, I did prison ministry to the females for about 16 years. And during my visit, I think I came across 4 women who had killed their mates. These, apart from one, these were not violent women, or what we say, wild women. And you listen to their stories, and I asked myself the question, at what point should interventions have been made? Because often people knew, their relatives knew, some of them witnessed it, the constant abuse, some of them had gone to the police station time and time again. Mm-hmm. And one day, whether it is madness or whatever, they think they'd had enough. Now, we have this culture that, oh, well, it's their business. And you're not supposed to get into man and woman business. So, the psychologist and the lawyer, at what point is outside intervention? Outside could include close relatives. At what point is intervention necessary? You got the point?
Yes.
Rochelle, do you want to take that one first? I think I've been talking too much already.
Thank you, caller. Rochelle?
Yeah, so she asked at what point intervention is necessary. I think at the first instance, that is when you should intervene. But then we have to also, there are varying factors that come into play, because there are instances where the woman might not want to speak up about it. There are instances where she might not want help. So in those circumstances, there's really little that a neighbor or a sister or a brother can do. However, if you see somebody in trouble or somebody in danger, that is when you are duty bound to reach out a helping hand. However, as I said, there might be some circumstances where, and it has happened, where we've seen examples where somebody might actually witness a person being abused or assaulted by their partner, and they try to intervene and come to the woman's rescue. And then she opts to say, well, no, this is our business, leave it alone. But I do not think that should ever deter us from helping, from intervening, and from doing anything necessary that we can to be our sister's keeper or be our brother's keeper. Because at the end of the day, as I said before, it is up to each of us to make an effort in eliminating and eradicating this poison that is in our society that we call domestic violence.
Okay. Do you have anything to add?
I agree with Rochelle There's no specific formula for when another individual should intervene or another agency should intervene. I think, in fact, at all stages we should intervene and do what we think is going to be the most productive. For some people, that might mean being able to listen to her when she's stressed out and want somebody to just listen. You may not accept that she's making the right decision to stay in that relationship, but you can be there to support her in the way that she needs. Some people might need to give her money for her to leave. I've heard of situations like that, many situations like that in the UK, where the kind of intervention that would need is to get some money so that they can move out. Other interventions has been, as Rochelle says, for the man to be arrested or a restraining order be given on him. There's so many interventions that it's hard to say, to answer your question in a very straightforward way. So I would just to emphasize that you can intervene at any stage. The type of intervention is going to be what makes the difference for that couple at that specific time.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Gishard. We'll take a quick break and then we'll be back for more on this discussion.
Building depots. Terms and conditions apply. See stores for details.
This is not domestic violence, I call it domestic silence. It's not domestic violence, I call it domestic silence. It's not domestic violence. It's domestic silence. Stop!
To wait it out might be too late to shout. Once disrespect and abuse start, Just stay apart.
Stop domestic abuse in St. Kitts and Nevis. A message brought to you by BPW St. Kitts.
Round one.
Beating your woman doesn't make you any stronger. Assault is a criminal offense. Protect yourself and protect the woman you love. Stop domestic abuse in St. Kitts and Nevis. A message brought to you by BPW St. Kitts.
Magic happening. Campari. Taste.
Something incredible happens when Campari is mixed just right. Like Campari and orange juice poured over ice. Taste it. Try it tonight. Bitter, sweeter, better. Campari. Must be 18 years and older. Drink responsibly.
Terms and conditions apply. See stores for details.
Beating your woman is crazy.
To wait it out might be too late to shout. Once disrespect and abuse start, just stay apart. Abuse in any form ain't the new norm. Stop domestic abuse in St. Kitts and Nevis. A message brought to you by BPW St. Kitts.
Good morning and welcome back to Voices. Again, I am your host, Kevon Brown, and today I am joined with Rochelle Duncan in Nevis via Zoom and Dr. June Gishad Pine. And the topic for discussion today is domestic and gender-based violence. So let's dive right back in. What are some of the activities, any collaborations or anything that BPW is doing as it pertains to violence against women or domestic violence or gender violence, not necessarily for this month, but in general?
Okay. Well, your producers just played some of the public service announcements that we've prepared to support our COVID-19 response, because we were aware of the increase in violence against women in the Federation. But we're also in the process of making a mini-series, a vlog, that advises women about how to respond and how to seek help in their families and in their communities to manage these difficulties, domestic violence and other issues, emotional issues, financial issues, and so on they might be having, work-related issues they might be having also. And we also do participate in the 16 Days of Activism activities that the UN will devise for us to participate in, and that's a global thing that we will show support for. So we do that as well.
Okay. Rochelle, anything to add?
Well, just to reinforce that, as a club, we are trying to amplify our voices. As a women's club in particular, we want to amplify our voices in advocacy as it regards to domestic violence. We have a number of ads and jingles, as you have played, that relate specifically to domestic violence. And notwithstanding the COVID-19 situation that we're having, so we're not necessarily able to have activities publicly, but we're trying our best to maintain a presence on social media and in the media generally, to raise awareness on domestic violence.
Okay. And I had one question. What are you could answer it whether as a part of the of BPW or in your professional capacity or personally. But what are some recommendations that you would give to the listening audience, or women, anyone that is in a situation that may seem inescapable? What recommendations would you have for any of the listening audience to help them get away from that inescapable situation, whether it be any iteration of domestic violence?
Although I say, we should try not to oversimplify a complex situation, I think I would just crystallize what they should do in the phrase live good. I think what the lockdown demonstrated for us is that people had to be on top of one another in a completely unrehearsed way that they didn't imagine would cause the amount of stress and strain that it put on them. So they were siblings fighting one another, and partner to parent to child, and all sorts of things were happening. So if you can just make it your goal to live a harmonious life, and you take advice, you take support. Of course, there'll be things that you'll discard because it won't suit you, but really reach out in your community and in your families of origin to find any key possible to harmonious living. That is what family life is supposed to be about. And that would include having the balance in your finances, having emotional climate that's positive and nurturing for yourself, your partner, and your children. So I don't want to oversimplify it, but I'm afraid I'm just going to say my best advice would say to live good. Just always try to create a life for yourself where you're living your best life. And hopefully a lot of those issues will diminish.
Okay. Rochelle?
I'd just like to add, from a legal perspective, I'd want to emphasize the fact that domestic violence is a violation of your human rights. So when we consider the legal framework in St. Kitts and Nevis, we have in place the Domestic Violence Act, which criminalizes any act of domestic violence. And it allows for persons to make certain applications to the court. And we're not only looking at the domestic law that we have in place, but we have to also consider international instruments. There is the Convention on the Rights of a Child, the Inter-American Convention on the Prevention, Punishment, and Eradication of Violence Against Women. The name sounds a bit long, I know.
Yes.
And there's also a Women's Convention, which the name actually is the Convention on the elimination of all forms of discrimination against women. All of these international conventions, St. Kitts and Nevis has signed and ratified, which basically means that our state is duty bound to protect women. The state has a positive duty to ensure that victims of violence have access to mechanisms of justice, and it has a duty to develop a national plan of action to promote the protection rather of women against any form of violence. So what we're seeing here is that the state has a duty to victims. So I just want to encourage persons to have more confidence that there are institutions in place that are here to help you, not just from a governmental perspective, but also non-government organizations such as BPW, which has professionals like Dr. June, psychologists, there are attorneys in our club who are willing to go the extra mile in helping victims of domestic violence.
Okay, and go ahead.
So what I really wanted to drive home was that there are places and people available to help you.
And that brings up a point that I wanted to talk about with you guys. Help and resources. What are some of the resources available to women, men, children in these situations? I know you mentioned, Rochelle, about the ratified conventions that St. Kitts and Nevis are a part of. But what are some of the other resources that may be local that you are aware of that can help people in these situations?
I think Rochelle, you need to take that. I'm not that familiar with being.
Well, our police stations have the special victims units, and those persons who work in that unit should be sensitized, and not just sensitized, but trained in this area in how to deal with special victims, which includes victims of domestic abuse. The unfortunate thing is that we don't necessarily have shelters or homes where people can escape to. However, in the Domestic Violence Act that I mentioned before, there are applications that you can make. For example, an occupation order, where you make an application to the courts, and there are numerous attorneys in this jurisdiction who do this work pro bono. So you make an occupation order to the court, essentially asking that you are allowed to remain in your household. If it is that you live with a partner who is abusing you, that you are allowed to remain in that household, and the other person should not come near. And you can also make a protection order that essentially says the person should not come anywhere near you, and you are fully protected by an order of the court, so that that person is not allowed to come basically anywhere you work, anywhere you live, where you go to church, where you go to school, etc.
Okay. Again, we're taking calls. If there are any callers that have any questions, any concerns, please call in. The local numbers again are 466-0989, 662-0989, or 762-0989. And I want to go back and touch on the term help. For some reason, it's a very difficult term for people to comply with, to handle. Asking for help, as if asking for help is seen as something.
As a weakness.
Yes, as a weakness. Can we discuss that a little bit?
Okay. I think it boils down to the fact that it's not taken seriously enough across all sectors. Mm-hmm. And that is the major inhibitor of victims asking for help. When they see that they have been physically or mentally bruised and they raise it with the officials and nothing happens, it really is completely demoralizing, because if you cannot turn to the people who are paid to help you and who are endowed to help you by the law, then it's going to be a big disincentive, isn't it, for you to ask for help. But I think that's Rochelle's area, which she's talked about quite eloquently, and we'll probably talk about it further. I'm a big community person and a big family person. And I still feel we, as part of the community of families, have a responsibility to rewire our children, our fathers, our mothers, the young adults and teens that are around us, to begin to think about having more healthy relationships. To have more respectful relationships, to have more nurturing, successful relationships. And I think if we don't do that in tandem with all the different laws that are passed, this journey towards a community and a society that is free of abuse and free of violence will just be a lot slower. We really do need the community to take it seriously also, as well as having the laws and the professionals that are going to give support. People really do need their first base. They need their family, their communities, their best friends, and so on. So that is what I would say about seeking help.
Right. Rochelle?
I'd just like to add to what Dr. Gishar just said. It's essentially just boils down to sensitization. I alluded to police officers and first responders being sensitized to the issue, but the truth of the matter is, as a society, we all have to be sensitized to this issue. Mm-hmm. We have to recognize that it is not something that happens to our neighbors and we don't intervene. It is not something that we can turn a blind eye to. It is something that we all have to work together to find a solution.
Okay. Again, callers, well, we have 5 minutes to midday news. But if anyone has any questions or concerns for the ladies, please call in. Again, we're talking about domestic and gender-based violence as Syncits, the Department of Gender Affairs take part in the 16 days activism against gender and domestic-based violence. You're listening to WinFM 98.9. How do people reach BPW? Yeah, that's a very. We have a caller. Caller, you're live on Voices.
Yes. Back to the lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I want her to go back over the avenues of redress you have from the court. Because I have tried explaining it, and men, when they're in the wrong, take strong objection. When we talk about the occupancy redress and the idea that they have to come out of the house that they're paying for. I mean, could you take your time? And by the way, there is, I don't know if it has begun, but there is a home run by Edson Blatcher.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I think it's called the Garden of something or the other, where it is designed to give women some form of protection, short-term, who are victims of domestic abuse, they and their children. The gender affairs, I think, used to pay rent for persons, to be put up.
All right.
But I wanted to go over because I don't think that some people understand what it means. The addresses you can have in the court. That's what I wanted to explain to our people, especially the male, because some of them just say they can burn down the house. They can, what they're going to do and what they can't do.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe she could, because they're listening, and it applies to women if they are the abusers. So maybe they need to know if they are the abusers, this is what applies to you, even if you own the house or if you're paying the rent. So could you go over that again quickly?
All right. Thank you, caller. Rochelle?
Thank you, caller. Well, if it is that a person says that they're going to burn down the house, that is a crime also. So that is not in the best interest of anybody, not even the abuser. But yes, the application is called an application for an occupation order. So what it does is that the court will grant an order that the person who is being abused live in the household residence if it is necessary for their protection, or if it is in that person's best interest. So if it is that you are threatened by violence or you have experienced violence, you make an application to the court, and they will give you a prescribed period, and they will give you terms and conditions under which the order will be granted. So notwithstanding if the person's name is on the title, or if the person's name is on the lease, if the person is paying a mortgage, if the person is paying a rent, the court can make an order that you, the abused person or the survivor of abuse, will stay in that household exclusively.
Okay, well, I hope that answers the caller's question. And we are just 1 minute out from the midday news. I would like to absolutely thank Dr. Gishad Pine and Ms. Duncan for joining us this morning for the first hour of Voices as we discuss this very necessary topic of gender-based and domestic violence. Thank you, ladies, for joining me, and I hope I can bring you back sometime as we delve even further into issues surrounding gender.
Thank you for giving us this opportunity.
Thank you very much for having us, and we would be delighted to join you again if we are so invited.
Thank you. We'll have the midday news coming up.
You found the sound. 98.9. Win FM.
A little bit, yeah.
We now bring you the WinFM Headline News. The WinFM Headline News is brought to you by Caribbean Alliance, KDP Enterprises, The Grange, Carib Brewery, CNC Trading.
Without limits, happy and free. The skin you're in with no apology. The one to seize the day. Grab an LLB. Live, love, be. With LLB. Live, love, be. Live, love, be. Be who you know you can be. Grab an LLB. Live, love, be. Angostura, lemon, lime, and bitters. Live, love, be.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts, offering 24-hour nursing, therapeutic, and residential care for older adults? It's situated at Otley, 7 miles east of Vastair in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodation to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020, fax 466-8221, or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com, or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Protect your lifestyle with Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Till you walk with a local reputation and service for second to none. Securing you is our mission. People that you can trust, your business, property, we got you covered. Motor or personal, whatever it is, we got you covered. 130 years in this business, we've got you covered. For all your insurance needs, visit or call us at 465-2631 or 469-5303. Delia Walwyn, people you can trust.
Shipping your cargo shouldn't be a hassle. It can be as easy as a single call to Amerijet International, your worldwide cargo transportation solution. We provide all the services you need to ship your goods anywhere in the world. Whether your shipment is fresh, frozen, large or small, alive or hazardous, you can count on Amerijet to deliver it safe and sound. Amerijet International, by land, sea or air. We get it there. For more information, visit us online at www.amerijet.com or call us at KDP Enterprises, telephone number 466-9595.
The Sexual Harassment Bill 2020 was debated in the National Assembly on Wednesday, November 25th. The mock sitting featured young people from the St. Kitts National Youth Parliament Association. The Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Malachi Ferguson, introduced the Sexual Harassment Bill 2020, which seeks to provide for the prevention of sexual harassment, the introduction of remedies in circumstances where a person makes a sexual harassment complaint, and for related matters. This bill is quite timely as the world commemorates 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. Mr. Ferguson classified the bill as one that is a matter of serious concern, adding that comprehensive and robust legislation is one of the ways governments can protect its citizens. The bill, which received tremendous support from Mr. Theodore Prasad, the Honorable Minister of Social Development and Gender Affairs, seeks to abolish heinous acts, abuses of power, addresses critical concerns within gender-based violence, and protect and empower vulnerable members of society.
Madam Speaker, permit me to draw attention to some of the more noteworthy aspects of the bill. Among other actions, the bill would, and I quote, set out the circumstances to be satisfied in order for an act of sexual harassment to be constituted, and it identifies the types of conduct that would amount to sexual harassment. The conduct includes making sexual advances, sexual comments about a person in his or her sight, and hearing or sexual gestures that are unwelcome to the person, and providing a person with unwelcome sexual images or graphics. The bill would prohibit a person who supplies goods, services, or facilities for the benefit of the public or a section of the public from subjecting the intended recipient of those goods to sexual harassment. Madam Speaker, it would also prohibit a person or employee of an educational authority which provides facilities for vocational training in order to assist another person to become fit for employment from subjecting that person to sexual harassment. It would impose an obligation on every employer to issue a policy statement concerning sexual harassment in the workplace, and it would require an employer to take appropriate action on becoming aware, reasonably suspicious, or informed of an act of sexual harassment. Madam Speaker, in February of 2003, there was a protection from sexual harassment bill that was on the order paper of this National Assembly when the opposition held these benches. There is no indication, however, that this bill actually had a first reading, and it's in fact, Madam Speaker, perhaps because this was some 17 years ago. I don't even recall if this bill ever had been read. While we applaud the efforts of the then government, we recognize that it was evidently neither important enough to materialize into actual legislation, nor effective enough to stimulate significant awareness of this issue. Since almost a decade and a half later, Madam Speaker, sexual harassment has not only remained a fixture of our society, but has arguably risen to alarming proportions. Madam Speaker, there is a culture of behavior that has become normal over the years within the workplace and social settings where unwarranted physical contact, innuendo of a sexual nature, and other over-the-line behavior has come to be more commonplace than basic respect and decency. Unwelcome hugging in professional setting, sexual jokes that are more offensive than funny, lewd advances made on our streets in broad daylight, and an earshot of young, impressionable minds have become the order of the day.
The adoption of a national cultural policy was moved at the mock sitting of the National Assembly by the Honorable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Entertainment, Entrepreneurship, Talent, Development and Culture, Mr. Jalen Munzak.
In Kitts and Nevis, like most other Caribbean economies, has a narrow and declining industrial and services sector-based and an expanding debt overhang, in part due to deteriorating export competitiveness, and that the creative industry can be an engine for economic growth and a mechanism for economic diversification, which could improve global competitiveness, boost entrepreneurship, and youth employment. Acknowledging the creative industry is a major growth pole in the digital economy as exemplified by the shift towards a post-industrial economy where personal, recreational, and audiovisual service has expanded as a share of the expenses of the average household and as a share of the economy. And realizing further that the growth of the digital creative sector is accounted by rapid techno-economic change in products, distribution, and marketing, the increasing commercialization of intellectual property in the digital world, the growth of social networking, and for the synergies forged by value-enhancing activities and the conversion of contents, media, and telecoms. Having understood these, may this National Assembly create a framework that A, effectively allows for eased access of funds by entrepreneurs wishing to enter or expand their reach within the orange economy. B, promotes the importance of intellectual property and provides further protection for those who hold copyrights. C, creates avenues for the expression of culture and integrates into the education system the importance of the protection and practice of our culture, language, and heritage. D, makes provisions for the linkages between the cultural sector and those of tourism, trade, and technology. E, makes further provisions for the linkage of culture and international relations. F, implements a structure for the administration and financing of culture within the Federation, while further allowing for periodic reviews, adjustments, and improvements as it is rolled out. Be it therefore resolved that the National Assembly of St. Christopher and Nevis hereby adopt the National Cultural Policy.
The other youth parliamentarians were Eustacia Morton, Attorney General, Minister of Justice, Legal Affairs, Agriculture, Environment, Fisheries, Marine Resources, Cooperatives and Lands; Jelani Bell, Minister of Health, Education, Youth, Sports and Communication Technology; Dominic Williams, Minister of International Trade, Commerce, Industry, Tourism, Consumer Affairs, Foreign Affairs, Nevis Affairs and Civil Aviation; Theodore Prasad, Minister of Human Settlement, Insurance, Social Security, Ecclesiastical Affairs, Social Development and Gender Affairs; Senate Warner, Minister of Labor, Transport, Ports, Public Infrastructure, Utilities, Posts and Urban Development; and members of the opposition: Darren Connor, Leader of the Opposition; Alaric Arachi, Deputy Leader of the Opposition; Theora Smithen, Senator; Ronia Francis, Senator; Joel Smith, Member for St. Christopher 5, and Zara Humphrey, Member for St. Christopher 6, as well as Carissa Roberts as the Clerk and Zequa Percival as the Sergeant-at-Arms. The Honorable Jonelle Powell, Minister of Education, Culture, Youth and Sports, among other government officials, were also present at the sitting, which was presided over by Ms. Patrice Harris.
St. Kitts Nevis is among 7 destinations included in LIAT flights set to resume at the end of the month, November 30th. Flights will operate 5 days a week from Antigua and Barbuda, Barbados, Dominica, Grenada, St. Lucia, St. Kitts Nevis, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The airline says it has completed all the training and regulatory requirements for its November 30th return to the Caribbean skies and has implemented new procedures to ensure travel safety and COVID-19 compliance for all staff and passengers. These include the mandatory wearing of masks at check-in and on board, enhancements to its cleaning and sanitization protocols, and new boarding procedures. LIAT is expected to announce other destinations for its December schedule. After news of LIAT's possible liquidation announced in June 2020 by Antigua and Barbuda Prime Minister Kevon Brown, amidst the already existing strain on travel as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, people in the region began to wonder whether the Caribbean airline would return or another carrier would pick up the slack. On Sunday, November 1st, LIAT signaled its intention to continue its role as an air bridge for the region when it made a symbolic flight from Antigua and Barbuda to Dominica, its first flight since being grounded in March 2020.
In regional news,
in more LIAT news, 5 entities are being courted as potential partners. This report from ABS Antigua.
Several options were on the table when Cleveland Seaforth was appointed administrator to the beleaguered carrier back in July. Investment is paramount, with 5 entities showing interest. Seaforth will be seeking more time, between 3 to 6 months, from the court to complete his negotiations with them.
We are saying that based on where we are with discussions with prospective investors, of whom we have 5 of them who have expressed an interest, we felt we needed more time to sit down and have discussions with them to try and reach an agreement.
He reports that negotiations have reached to the point of discussing a memorandum of understanding with 2 of the stronger contenders, but he wants to be assured they have the necessary financial backing.
Where we have sat down and gone through and discussed the topics where we would want to get involved in more discussions so they can reach an agreement with the government of Antigua. From my perspective, I'm asking at this stage to show me proof of funds. And so that is the stage where we are at the moment.
Of the 5 prospects, 2 are airlines and the other 3 are private investors, eyeing a potentially rewarding venture. Seaforth says governments in the Caribbean are also maintaining interest.
The 5 by themselves do not involve any of the governments. However, there are the governments within the region who have expressed an interest as being part of the joint venture agreement between a private sector investor and the government of Antigua and Barbuda.
And the months ahead will be telling in how quickly the negotiations can move in a direction that pulls the airline away from the possibility of liquidation and keep the regional carrier flying. Andy Liebert reporting for ABS News.
A viral video depicting 2 visitors to St. Lucia not wearing masks was the cause of controversy weeks ago. Now, the couple in the video have broken their silence. This report from HTS St. Lucia.
2 visitors caught on camera, seemingly breaking mandatory mask protocol, have broken their silence in a lengthy missive on the now infamous viral video of locals confronting the tourists in the Rodney Bay area. The letter states that the American tourists had not been in Florida since January and had been sailing from country to country to experience new cultures. It reads, quote, "While walking, we had numerous locals on the street not wearing masks demand to know where we are from and what resort we are staying at. While we don't like being singled out just for our appearance, we understand the fear of COVID, so we are happy to talk to locals about where we have been and how we are certain we are not spreading the virus." It goes on. However, in many of our interactions with locals, it was clear that we are not wanted here. We have left St. Lucia and sadly, at the moment, we have no desire to return. We hope that St. Lucians can reconcile their different views on tourism and foreigners and achieve a healthy balance that supports the local economy while protecting and preserving the island's identity and tradition. Unquote. PS in the Ministry of Tourism, Donaline Vite, says the incident should serve as a reminder to nationals of the importance of abiding by protocols.
As a country and as a people, we need to be very practical, and the expectations that we have for others, we also need to have for ourselves. And there is one good takeaway for me in this experience, is that we need to understand and be a little more responsible in adhering to the protocols. Whereas we have 2 persons that were highlighted, I want to look at them not in the context of tourism, but in the context of people and how we respond to the protocols and how this response now could mean a lowering of the incidence of COVID for us.
Vite says the clash between locals and visitors goes beyond an isolated incident. She says it should foster a change in attitudes of persons who are still reluctant to follow protocols.
Not just for tourism, but as a nation and as a people, how will we respond and how we protect St. Lucia for all of us?
The Prime Minister also added his voice to the conversation, stressing the importance of maintaining tourism as the lifeline to economic recovery for the island.
We need to continuously find that balance of between lives, saving lives, and saving livelihoods. Tourism, we've shown that even in the midst of this pandemic, that we can have our borders open and we can get people to come here. And here we're an example of 2 people that followed the proper protocols. to come to St. Lucia. And so there has to be a greater level of tolerance and respect to each other, both by the tourists to St. Lucians, but equally St. Lucians to the tourists, in order for us to coexist.
Tourism accounts for 65% of the gross domestic product in St. Lucia. The World Health Organization cautions against blaming and shaming certain groups of people during the coronavirus pandemic. Solange Alfred, HTS News Force.
We now bring you this international report.
These women are chanting what has become an international feminist anthem. It's called A Rapist in Your Path. It was first performed a year ago here in Chile. The chorus says, "It wasn't my fault, or because of what I wore or where I was. The rapist is you." All day long, there were performances and demonstrations to mark International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. Tens of thousands of Chilean women have been victims of gender violence and harassment, more often than not carried out with total impunity. These kerchiefs represent victims of femicide.
But today we have each other, today we have a movement, that we have encountered each other, and we have the opportunity to change things because we are a collective and massive force of change.
For years, Chilean women took a back seat in the feminist movement, but not anymore.
We didn't talk about it before. How could we say that a cousin or a priest was doing something so awful to you? But that's changed dramatically thanks to the younger generation.
These women are demanding protection and stronger penalties for domestic violence, rape, and sexual harassment.
But despite growing awareness, violence against women is on the rise, particularly domestic violence. And this has been particularly extreme during the pandemic here and in practically all of Latin America. And while the government and lawmakers promise that they will take action, legislation that could make all the difference continues to sit at the bottom of the pile in Congress.
In Mexico, where 10 femicides are committed every day, women march to demand an end to impunity.
I live in fear of going out and never returning alive to see my mother and family. That's what living in Mexico is like for a woman.
Yet, from one end of Latin America to the other, women are standing up to say enough. Lucia Newman, Al Jazeera, Santiago.
Well, one of the more controversial elements of the spending review was the Chancellor's decision to cut the amount of money that the UK gives in foreign aid. The decision has been widely criticised, and a minister at the Foreign Office has resigned today in protest at the decision. Mr Sunak told MPs that to carry on spending abroad when there was a domestic emergency was difficult to justify. Our diplomatic correspondent James Landale has more details.
For years, the sight of a plane delivering British food and medicine has brought hope to millions. The humanitarian assistance that can, for some, mean the difference between life and death. But now the government's cutting back, to the fury of the man who championed aid in office.
Well, I think it's a very sad moment. It's not just that we're breaking a promise to the poorest people and the poorest countries in the world, a promise that we made and a promise that we don't have to break. It's that 0.7% commitment. It really said something about Britain.
Last year, the UK spent £15 billion on foreign aid, about 0.7% of national income. The government's now cutting that legally binding target to just 0.5%. That means spending only £10 billion next year. This would be less than Germany on 0.6%, but more than France on 0.4%. Those who work to reduce poverty and disease say these cuts will bite deep, particularly during the COVID-19 pandemic.
This is the last time we should be cutting aid. Cutting aid will make it harder to get vaccines to people all over the world, harder to get the treatments that people need, and ultimately it will extend the lifetime of the pandemic. This is a little bit like cutting funding to the RAF right in the middle of the Battle of Britain.
My Lords, existing humanitarian disasters and conflicts are going to...
The Foreign Office Development Minister, Lady Sugg, was so unhappy she resigned, saying the cut was fundamentally wrong. But the aid budget has long faced questions about priorities, such as why some goes to India with its own space programme. Questions that are harder to answer when the country's facing such an economic emergency.
This is not something that anybody wanted to have to do, but the truth is that the NHS and helping people who are unemployed has to be the priority next year.
For years, Britain's had a reputation as an aid superpower, and that's got the UK a hearing on the international stage. It's opened doors for ministers and officials here at the Foreign Office. The question is what impact today's decision will have on that reputation, just as Britain tries to carve a new role for itself after Brexit. To spend less on aid, the government will also have to change the law, and that means a long parliamentary battle ahead. James Landell, BBC News.
This may appear to be a small protest in a remote village, but its impact could have far-reaching consequences for farmers' land rights across Bangladesh. These people are protesting against government plans to repair a dam they say is damaging their farmland and livelihoods. Thousands of others, whose families have also farmed this area for generations, have staged a week-long hunger strike. One elderly protester died, and several others have become very ill. But they're determined to continue. Mahfouza Begum says there has been famine in the area, and their very existence is at stake now.
I have raised and educated 3 children by working on this farmland with my husband. Now I can't pay school fees for my children, and we can't feed ourselves because we are not able to cultivate in this land anymore due to the dam. We beg you all, please don't take our land. We will never give up our land.
In 2010, the government declared this area a national park, a decision that's been challenged in court. A dam was then built last year to create a lake, and local people say that's when their lives changed. In Bangladesh, where a large portion of the rural population is already exposed to a range of natural hazards and the effects of climate change, the construction of a dam without environmental impact study has caused widespread concern. It's now threatening the livelihood of thousands of farmers. Villagers say the dam has also damaged water supplies.
The pollution from the nearby coal mine flows through this lake, but since this is natural free-flowing water, the pollution generally don't stay here or affect us. But because of this dam, the water now gets stagnant and polluted, and there is hardly any fish.
Earlier this year, rain and floods damaged the dam. The government says it's an essential resource and plans to repair it, and the protesters' actions are misguided.
There's been a lot of work and investment by the government in developing this area, like improving the waterways, building a cross dam and tourism facilities in what is purely state-owned land. But in the last 2 years, the villagers failed to show us any legal land ownership documents.
But the villagers say they're defiant and united, and for them, saving the environment and their way of life is a matter of survival. Tanvir Chaudhry, Al Jazeera, Bangladesh.
Shipping your cargo shouldn't be a hassle. It can be as easy as a single call to Amerijet International, your worldwide cargo transportation solution. We provide all the services you need to ship your goods anywhere in the world. Whether your shipment is fresh, frozen, large or small, alive or hazardous, you can count on Amerijet to deliver it safe and sound. Amerijet International, by land, sea or air. We get it there. For more information, visit us online at www.amerijet.com or call us at KDP Enterprises, telephone number 466-9595.
Protect your lifestyle with Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Till you walk with a local reputation and service for second to none. Securing you is our mission. People that you can trust, your business, property, we got you covered. Motor or personal, whatever it is, we got you or 469-5303. Delia Walwyn, people you can trust.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts, offering 24-hour nursing, therapeutic, and residential care for older adults? It's situated at Otley, 7 miles east of Vastair in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodation to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020, fax 466-8221, or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com, or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
Without limits, happy and free. The skin you're in with no apology. The one to seize the day. Grab an LLB. Live, love, be. With LLB. Live, love, be. Live, love, be. Be who you know you can be. Grab an LLB. Live, love, be. Angostura, lemon, lime, and bitters. Live, love, be.
WINN is 98.9. 98.9 is Win FM.
Like New Steam Cleaning and Power Washing Service specializes in high-pressure washing and floor care, green and chemical cleaning solutions for upholstery, bathrooms, carpets, and windows. We also remove heavy grease off kitchen hoods and extractor fans, or mold and mildew from your home or office. Like New Steam Cleaning and Power Washing Service, renewing all surfaces. We are the steam experts. Call us at 765-4925 or email likenewsteamcleaning@gmail.com. You can also like us on Facebook. Christmas specials on pressure washing services.
It's official! Friday, December 18th and Saturday, December 19th are VAT days. But you can come today and get pre-approved credit for VAT Day. Save some of the hassle of this VAT Day and drop by some of your local Hosford department stores today. Yes! Come to any Hosford department today and get pre-approved credit for December 18th and December 19th. No down payment necessary. That's right, zero money down. And no payment until February 2021. That's right, no payment until February 2021. Come to Hosford's today, where we will be dropping major discounts plus pre-approved credit when you shop now. How, you ask? Well, it's simple. All you have to do is visit any of the Hosford's departments, including furniture and appliances, Ashley Furniture Home Store, Building and Nevis Centers, and the Automotive Division. Make your VAT Day wish list, and we'll do the credit check. Come back on VAT Day and get all that you picked with your pre-approved credit and be on your way to a merrier Christmas. Whether it's new furniture, a new stove, or a brand new car, Hosford is giving you pre-approved credit today. Be on your way to a merrier Christmas. Pre-approved credit today for VAT Days December 18th and December 19th at Hosford. Visit stores for all details.
My fellow citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis, today is the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. Like other international days, this day serves to educate the public on an issue that has become a global problem and needs to be addressed for the sake of humanity. The theme for this year is Orange the World, Fund, Respond, Prevent, Collect. According to the United Nations, violence against women and girls has become one of the most widespread, persistent, and devastating human rights violations in the world today. To make matters worse, COVID-19 lockdown measures have resulted in an increase in violence against women and girls, especially domestic violence. As a result, the government of St. Kitts and Nevis continues to join our global partners in an effort to end the violence, and we are calling on all citizens to join us. In 1979, the United Nations General Assembly adopted the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, commonly known as CEDAW, to end gender-based violence around the world. Its adoption was partly in response to the brutal murders of the Mirabel sisters in the Dominican Republic on the 25th of November in 1960. The three sisters were killed by their country's ruler, Rafael Trujillo, for opposing his dictatorship. This led to other female activists to observe the day in 1981 to serve as a reminder to all government and international organizations to organize activities that will raise public awareness every year. This day also marks the start of the 16-day campaign, which calls for the elimination of all forms of violence against women, men, and children. The campaign will therefore end on the 10th of December, which is recognized as the International Day of Human Rights. Domestic violence in St. Kitts and Nevis continues to be a serious concern that we must all pay attention to. According to the statistics received from the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force, the Special Victims Unit, there have been fluctuating reports of abuse from 2018 to 2020. In 2018, there were 120 reported cases of domestic violence, with 30 of the victims were males and the remaining 90 were females. In 2019, the number of reported cases declined to 87, where 7 of the victims were males and the remaining 80 were females. Unfortunately, however, in the first half of 2020, this year, 106 cases were reported, more cases compared to the whole of 2019, and just about 14 cases less than the figure reported for the whole of 2018. While we await the final report for the second half of 2020, we can only hope that the figures have decreased, not because of a decline in the number of reports made, but because of a decline in the number of incidents that have occurred. The increase in violence against women during COVID-19 has been termed a shadow pandemic, and some factors that are responsible for the increase include money concerns, cramped living conditions, isolation with abusers, and also restrictions in movement. So how can we as a federation help and respond? We can do so by acting on the theme, Orange the World, Fund, Respond, Prevent, Collect. Contrary to the beliefs of some, governments alone cannot effectively fund all of the help that is needed. This issue will require the financial efforts of the government and non-governmental institutions, including businesses and individuals. We must ensure that essential services for survivors of domestic violence remain readily available during the pandemic. In the United States, a woman in danger pretended to call a pizza place, but instead she called 911. Her tone of voice caught the dispatcher's attention, who played along and quickly sent help her way. We should all therefore be mindful of the cues that the victims might send to any one of us. Let us be mindful of the signs of domestic violence in our relationships. The abuser, often bullies, threatens in controlling of finances, and is physically or sexually abusive. If any of these factors pertain to you or someone you know, please seek help as soon as possible. You may contact the Special Victims Unit at a hotline 665-3091, and this can be done 24/7. You can also contact the Department of Gender Affairs at 662-5492, and this is also a hotline which is available 24/7. In order for us to effectively help, relevant agencies must continue to record and share the data between one another. However, it is also important for all victims to come forward, because if we do not know the full extent to which our federation is hurting, we will definitely misdiagnose and undertreat the problem. Before I close, I would like to encourage you to support the activities for the 16-day campaign organized by the Department of Gender Affairs. These include the church service, which was held, of course, on Sunday last at the Zion Moravian Church. There's a mock parliament today, sexual harassment bill on the 25th, which is today, and this will be held at government headquarters here in St. Kitts. And of course, there's a display of silent witnesses on the 27th at the Independence Square, and on the 4th of December in Nevis as well. The Wear Orange Day, also on the 4th, and the radio panel discussion on the 9th of December are two events that you should also pay attention to. I would like to thank the Department of Gender Affairs, the police, the SVU, the hospital, and everyone else who have valiantly worked to help our victims. Finally, to those who have abused their power and position, I say stop. What you're doing or what you have done is a crime that will never be okay. May we all continue to work together to eradicate the incidents of violence against women. Thank you.
Again, I am your host, Kevon Brown, and the topic for discussion today is domestic and gender-based violence. You were just listening to the Minister of Gender Affairs et al. Eugene Hamilton's address in recognition of International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, which was yesterday, November 25th, and was the UN's International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. And it started the 16-day activism campaign under the theme Orange the World, Fund, Respond, Prevent, and Collect. We'll take a short break for some ads, and we'll be right back to take your calls and continue the discussion.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
Paint it, tile it, improve it. Your walls, paint it. Your floors, tile it. Your home, improve it. Huge savings at the Hotspot Building Center. Paint it, tile it, improve it. Sales event happening now. Yes. Come to Hotspot Building Center now and get savings of 25% off all paint and up to 75% off all tiles. Yes, yes. Nothing's are gonna keep at Hotspot with up to 75% off piles of tiles in all styles and 25% off all paint. Come now and get a chance to win $500 shopping spree at Value Mart with the purchase of 5 gallons of paint or more. That's right. Buy 5 gallons or more of paint and you get a chance to win $500 in free groceries. Starting now until December 31st, 2020. It's your home. So paint it, tile it, improve it. At Hawksworth Building and Nevis Center's year-end Paint It, Tile It, Improve It sale. Come now. Save big and simply paint it, tile it, and improve it. The event starts now and ends December 31st, 2020. Terms and conditions apply. See store for details.
Teddy, say what you want to say.
Something on my chest, I want to express it. Let me ask you a question.
To every abuse, take a stance. Practice social distance.
Stop domestic abuse in St. Kitts and Nevis. A message brought to you by BPW.
Look in your house and fix it.
And welcome back to Voices again. I am your host, Kevon Brown, and the topic is domestic and gender-based violence. During the first hour of Voices, I was joined by representatives from the Business and Professional Women's Club of St. Kitts, Dr. June Gishard-Pine and attorney Rochelle Duncan in Nevis, and we had a very robust discussion on domestic and gender-based violence. And I want to thank them again for coming in and sharing with us. Again, callers, listeners, please call in and share your views. If you have any views, concerns, any comments that you want to make concerning the topic. The numbers again are 466-0989, 662-0989, or 762-0989. And the international numbers are 0333, that's 0333, 344-0065, 718-285-6984, or 305-921-4618. The issue of domestic and gender-based violence, it's a complicated issue. There are a lot of moving parts, and as Dr. Gishard-Pine was saying, that she hates to oversimplify a complicated issue, and this is a complicated issue. The abuse could be physical, verbal, sexual, financial, and abuse does not discriminate. It can happen against men, women, and children of any age. Abusers do not have a specific look or image and can be of any class in all sectors of society. We have a caller. Caller, you're live on Voices.
Good afternoon, Kevon.
Good afternoon.
Are you Devon's brother?
No, I'm not.
You all sound like twins.
Oh?
Only one named Cornelius and one named Brown.
Yes.
Anybody ever told you so?
No.
Yeah, man, I'm sure people listening to the radio thought it was Devon. Anyway, good afternoon to you, and good afternoon to all the listeners at home and abroad. Now, the theme begins with fund, respond, and something else. Now, let me deal with the first two. Fund. Now, everybody acknowledges that we have a problem with domestic violence. There's no question. We don't have to go out and look for it. We know it. It is almost a cultural thing. We have passed the law, so we have the Domestic Violence Act. We have made some provision, but not enough. You have in the police force, what I call it again, Special Victims Unit. Sometimes it is managed by two persons, you know. 2. 1, 2. And then they have to work with the child protection or the probation unit, which might have a few. Now, if you have limited, because this is where the funding comes in, you see?
Yes.
If you acknowledge that it is a problem, and it is even worse now because of our economic and social conditions with the pandemic, it should have been beefed up. It don't make no sense to hear, oh, well, since you have the lockdown, it escalates. Well, what have you done to provide the support that is needed? If the special victim unit is overburdened, all they're going to be doing is taking notes. So, you know, the public sector, we're good at taking notes, eh? They can't deal with each case effectively. If before they start one, another one comes, they'll be overwhelmed.
Right.
And sometimes that is one of the reasons why the cases them don't even reach to the courts. They have so many unfinished, half-finished, and sometimes they have to depend sometimes on the CID, who again may also be overwhelmed. So the funding has to do with the redistribution of the funds in the security system. We need to fund these things properly.
So you're saying on a federal level it needs to be
federal and island. Well, security is a federal issue. So let me put it there then, since you put it so. Yeah, it is a federal issue.
Yep.
They're responsible for both islands. Do we have the protection, the same unit in Nevis? And who is manning it? You know, all of these things that should be in place. You need more than one. Maybe you need one in every station, because you have one in every district. Not one in the Bastia police station alone. If it has improved, I ask the police command to correct me, because I've been out of the loop a little while, you know. But I mean, I have used the services not for myself. You have, because they deal with all sorts of domestic violence, abuse of children, adults, men, male and female. So we need to, if we are serious about dealing with this thing, even with the counseling, you know, every time we hear about the counselor, you hear, you must go and see Dr. Blake, Michelle. How many persons can this well-meaning lady handle? And Dr. Crawford, how many clients can they adequately handle? Because in some cases of domestic violence, they need counseling. They need counseling sometimes more than punishment. Some people need to be spoken to, you know, to be given a chance to explain why they deal with conflict resolution.
In a violent way.
Yeah, but sometimes, you know, people can learn. People can change, eh?
Well, that's the importance of rehabilitation.
That's what I'm saying. So we need to fund these things, should be properly funded. The child protection unit, you need maybe more people. We have a lot of people coming out now with psychology and whatever. And see to it that they get adequate training, because, you know, I know you go to university and you learn the theories and so, but sometimes you lack the practice. And sometimes the ethics and so that people complain about have to be taught. So I said to myself, now look at the halfway home. The home for battered women, they usually call, right? The one that is being put up in St. Kitts is private. Private, you know, which means that the manager has to seek funding from all kind of ways That's like the children home. People don't know the children home is not the government owned. They have to go and raise their own money. And if things tight, they may not get the subvention. So, I have not seen any subvention in the budget for the private facility. So if we're serious about, because you can suggest to somebody, well, you can leave the home of the man and then the family afraid to take them in. They have nowhere to go. But maybe the government can, they have a lot of houses, down Portlands, because I'm from the village, and a lot of government houses down there. Things they can do to create their own, because that is why so many women have to, after they make the complaint, have to go back home and meet the devil. Or you went to go make complaint and they get a next set of licks. So the funding thing has got to be taken seriously. That is why they put it first, Fund. Fund the avenues that will provide protection. Don't just talk about it. And even, well, in saying it, we're not very benevolent. When you put on America, everything have something. People give for this, people give for that. We're not very philanthropic. Put it that way. And I must commend the BP, the Business and Professional Women's Club, for adopting the theme. And I heard the ladies say that a number of lawyers in the club stand ready to assist persons who suffer from domestic violence. Now, that should be public knowledge. So people know you have legal aid. You know what I mean? They should not look. Because people think, well, I can't afford to hire a lawyer. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, they're not aware of the resources available to them.
Yes. I mean, they have a new protocol, which I told Mr. Cornelius about, and he got a copy of it. It tells you what step to go through, and the gender affairs could arrange for you. But if it was known that, look, these are the lawyers that you can contact in case you need, it will make life a lot easier. People knew where the resources were and fund them.
Right.
It don't make any sense. You say, well, they're down there. And respond. When you're going to respond timely. You got to have timely response. Now, people come on to make a complaint, and you turn up 2 days after. Somebody could be dead by then. And sometimes they are responsible for late response. Nobody should have to go on to the police station twice and 3 times to report domestic abuse. It shouldn't happen. You shouldn't do it when you get around to it, knowing the ramifications. I mean, we have had cases here where women kill men, men kill women, and then the whole country go up in an uproar. When, if you had quicker response, it could have been averted. And response also go to families too.
Yes.
Especially mothers, Oh, well, you can't leave him. And they make you feel guilty. Well, we will say you make your bed, you lie down in it. Well, if you make a mistake and tell your daughter that, or your granddaughter, darling, that is an invitation for more abuse.
And it
if it is one place you're supposed to have an escape to, should be your home, your relative's home.
Yes.
All right, then. Somebody might want to call.
All right. Thank you, caller, for calling in and sharing. We'll take a short break and come back for more of Voices, and I'll continue to take your calls.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
It's official. Special! Friday, December 18th and Saturday, December 19th are VAT days. But you can come today and get pre-approved credit for VAT Day. Save some of the hassle of this VAT Day and drop by some of your local Hotspurs department stores today. Yes! Come to any Hotspurs department today and get pre-approved credit for December 18th and December 19th. No down payment necessary. That's right, zero money down. And no payment until February 2021. That's right. No payment until February 2021. Come to Hotspurs today, where we will be dropping major discounts plus pre-approved credit when you shop now. How, you ask? Well, it's simple. All you have to do is visit any of the Hotspurs departments, including furniture and appliances, Ashley Furniture Home Store, Building and Nevis Centers, and the Automotive Division. Make your VAT Day wish list, and we'll do the credit check. Come back on VAT Day and get all that you picked with your pre-approved credit and be on your way to a merrier Christmas. Whether it's new furniture, a new stove, or a brand new car, Hotspurs is giving you pre-approved credit today. Be on your way to a merrier Christmas. Pre-approved credit today for VAT Days December 18th and December 19th at Hotspurs. Visit stores for all details.
Tell me why you're beating woman. That's your mother. Why you're raping woman. That's your daughter. Tell me why you're killing woman. That's your sister. Tell me why you're abusing woman.
Listen to your heart before raising your hands.
Stop domestic abuse in St. Kitts and Nevis. A message brought to you by BPW St. Kitts.
Good afternoon. You're back with Voices. I am your host, Kevon Brown, and again, the topic for discussion today is domestic and gender-based violence. And we're taking your calls. So if anyone has any concerns, any points, anything to share, we welcome the calls. The caller that we had raised an interesting point that I wanted to bring up. But before that, we have a caller. Caller, you're live on Voices.
Yes, Kevin. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes, I would like to give my input on the youth parliament that hosted yesterday, no?
Yes.
They was very, very good. But I think the gender violence and littering around Bastille, they should debate them two together, because it's very, very serious around the community right now. It abused a woman and littering in the country.
Good morning to everyone.
Nastiness in the country. And where we got parliamentarians dragging the foot with serious issues. And we, street people, so to speak, bad boys, we're not going to tolerate it. We're not going to tolerate it. The nastiness in town and around in the different communities. This is them talking here, man, watching the face. Because born here, Kevon. We're not going to tolerate the abuse of women. And if it coming from people who come to this country to live, resident, visiting, we're not going to tolerate the abusing of women, because this is not the country. And the same thing goes to littering, nastiness. good program. And we bad boys will custom and listen you. Because your adherence to what we're talking about. Because the people in government is not listening and they got to watch them down. Because come in, man, watch in the field. Have a good day, Javon.
Thank you, caller. And I think the point that the caller wanted to drive home is that in terms of the issue of domestic violence and gender-based violence, the community is responsible. The community as a whole is responsible. And during my early discussion with Dr. Gishad Pine and Rochelle Duncan, we were speaking about interventions and when is an appropriate time, in response to a question from a caller, when is an appropriate time or when should interventions happen in relations to those cases. And as Dr. Gishad Pine mentioned, intervention can happen at any point during the course of abuse. It just depends on the type of intervention and the effect of the intervention. But on the point, and we have a caller. Caller, you're live on Voices.
Mr. Brown, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
It is safe to say Mr. Brown is in town. Make call for a munch.
Okay.
Let me say good afternoon to all the listeners. Jam down, good afternoon. I love to hear Jam down. Cousin Henry, good afternoon. Me call in, me hear Cousin Henry, me agree with most of the things that she say. But she say two things there that me have to rebut.
Mm-hmm.
She say funding and the team where then at the police service that quick respond or whatever the case may be. And she say maybe that's why some of the cases on them don't even reach the court because probably they act too slow and maybe funding. Maybe rebut her on that. Kevon, you listen to me?
Yes, I'm listening.
Me go to plenty woman rescue. And let me tell you something. Some of them just want the legal relief, but they don't want a court. They don't want their man get locked up. You hear me? So the matter of you could have got the funding, the police could have responded. Some of them just want to stop just there and go no further. I gotta tell you something. You got an incident that when not time for court, the girl left and go away. You get that? But she not on the island, so she can't turn up a court.
Mm-hmm.
You understand exactly what I'm saying? Sometime, boy, let me tell you something. This gender violence, you have to very, 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 very be careful. Sometimes, oh, you even go to them assistants, because next thing, then turn around and make you know be the enemy, you know. And next thing you see them man, they lap over together again, and then they fix with you. Your ex-police run to want to rescue, and the girl get beat up bad. So he now I try to push him. To say if he can get this matter, go to the court and listen. But the girl stopped back with the police. Next thing, the police left the force. You know, not the force no more, you retire. The girl still don't even talk to you up to today. Up to right there now, me I talk to you on the phone, you don't even talk to the police. You get that? So you have to very be careful. And we can give experience after experience after experience, because between Montserrat and Antigua. Me get couple problems solved, but me tell you, plenty of them get solved. And let me dump on this point here. Me son will say again that you hear like you make up your bed, so then you have to lie down in there, and even so like some parents will say, oh, no, left the man and so forth and so. But sometimes it's like you see the rope there, you walk right in. You and I even take the rope and put it around your neck and jump off yourself. Hang yourself. You understand the parable there? You understand the parable there, Kevon?
Elaborate on it for me.
Okay, let me do it make it more properly for you. You will see this guy and this girl, and the guy has them abuse the girl. This other girl out there, see that? You get that? And she still push herself. That woman love to compete, you know. I mean, they might get some enemy to them, but me talk the truth. Woman love to compete too. Woman enjoy taking away somebody else's money and go about and brag about them. You know about that?
Like you said, you're saying something that will cause a lot of people to have an issue with you, so I'm going to refrain.
No, but this is the reality. You see, you try to fix one problem. You try to fix one problem. Me a Christian, right? So you got how we done gone wrong already. You can see, because the way how God put out the blueprint. Man done depart from that, you know. So you're not sin now, and you try to fix one sin in a sin. You get that? So I want this, so they may tickle something. So when somebody come and talk straightforward, you don't get enemy, but the point about the truth and just the truth. And the devil, I run this show now, you know, Kevon. You get that? So you got this home. They look like it perfect. And somebody will step up and try to even block up the home there. Show you about that. So you got someone then see that this guy has them a bang this girl, and they still push themselves in. They live in Antigua, we have family. And one guy there with one of the girls in the family. And still keep woman with just the next door neighbor. When my side of the family talk, she get licks. The other girl, next door neighbor, when they get an argument, you hear she laugh. Oh, somebody gets blown. You get the point of you get the point of me talk about? So sometimes a difficult. Sometimes when the police even go and find out, them and all don't even know what to do sometimes. And if you can't get them to go forward to the court, the abuser will just continue because what happens? Funding probably good. So they don't mind take the little lick sometimes. You get the point? Sometimes you watch a situation of where you deal with them. The abuser probably pay the electrical, the water, maybe put food, whatever the case may be. You still got 3, 4, 5 women. She know that, but she still not left. You know exactly what I'm talking about, Kevon?
I hear you.
Yeah, so I want difficult something for solve. And one side you can't watch them just on the one side. You have to watch them right through. Right? Because if you just watch them on one side, man abuse woman, You got, let me get one more, Megan. Megan friend, nice looking girl. The friend see that this guy and his girlfriend them a pull good. She's still going to force herself. Me try to talk she out. Still going to force herself. Okay, she get breed. The guy now look after the. No, me now have to even take fund out of my pocket to help out with the baby and so forth. Which me have to become me done a task to shit before. Kevon, this not topic where you just pick up and think that you can solve just like that. It's good for some people. Some people come out and talk. Mm-hmm. But let me tell you something. The devil out there, and I want funny. This situation is just different, and I know one way to look at it. Okay, then, Kevon.
All right. Thank you, caller. I think one of the most important points from the discussion this morning and from what the caller was talking about is that domestic and gender-based violence is a complicated issue. There is no formula for understanding or getting out of the situation. There's absolutely no formula for it. And another interesting thing I got from a previous caller is that there are facilitators and enablers of domestic violence, and unfortunately it's a part of the culture. She mentioned a person of authority or a parental figure might stop the person from trying to escape an unhealthy situation, and that is facilitation and enabling of a behavior. It's almost normalizing abuse as a part of any relationship to keep your partner. And that is unhealthy. And again, we need to stress the importance of community responsibility as a whole in terms of helping people who need to escape these situations, because sometimes they don't know any better, which is unfortunate. And again, it's a culture that we need to escape from. Another culture that we need to escape from is victim blaming and victim shaming, a global and cultural practice, unfortunately, that needs to stop. And it further inhibits victims of abuse from seeking help. Again, we're taking your calls, but we will be right back after this short message.
Found the Sound 98.9 FM.
Paint it, tile it, improve it. Your walls, paint it. Your floors, tile it. Your home, improve it. Huge savings at the Hotspurs Building Center. Paint it, tile it, improve it. Sales event happening now. Yes. Come to Hotspurs Building Center now and get savings of 25% off all paint and up to 75% off all tiles. Yes. Nothing's gonna keep at Hotspurs with up to 75% off piles of tiles in all styles and 25% off all paint. Come now and get a chance to win $500 shopping spree at Value Mart with the purchase of 5 gallons of paint or more. That's right. Buy 5 gallons or more of paint and you get a chance to win $500 in free groceries. Starting now until December 31st, 2020. It's your home, so paint it, tile it, improve it at Hotspurs Building and Nevis Center's year-end Paint It, Tile It, Improve It sale. Come now, save big, and simply paint it, tile it, and improve it. The event starts now and ends December 31st, 2020. Terms and conditions apply. See store for details.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Voices. I am your host, Kevon Brown, and we have a caller. Caller, you're live on Voices.
Good afternoon, Mr. Kalinius.
Mr. Brown.
Hello?
Hello, good afternoon. It's Kevon Brown.
This is me. Kevon Bart? Oh, okay, Mr. Bart. No, Mr. Bart, let me tell you something. I live in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. I never live out. I just maybe go spend a little vacation, maybe for work 2 months or whatever. I never live the out to say that I live out there. And when you're talking about abuse, most women in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, they cause abuse on themselves. Because look at it. I might get a girlfriend or wife here cheating good, giving her what she want. She want nothing, as far as I'm concerned. But she see some gangster out there, cheating a woman bad with children, here supporting the children when he want to work. And she will still go out there involved with them. And maybe get a relationship with him, go live with him too. And this the thing where they bring abuse for themselves. But I always believe that is 50-50 in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Woman abuse man, verbally, physically, spiritually, sexually, and men abuse women. Both the same too. And I believe it's 50-50 because men, when they get abused, they don't go report it. Even husband and wife. Wife cheat husband like dog. Right? That's abuse. I know wife cheat husband, take them back into them, all kind of thing. You understand? And this the thing that we man got to stand up for. We man got to stand up when we get them kind of thing coming to us. We got to go report it. Because when we report it, it will look like that the abuse going to woman and none to man. You understand? So this is a serious situation when it comes to that. If men ain't go report the abuse. I mean, everybody quick to jump and say, oh, look how he do she, look how she do she. But they don't see when she not do he. You understand? And this our problem, our big problem. I am in mid-50s. I love woman very much. My mind, heart, and soul with woman. But I ain't going to let no woman abuse me. And I ain't going to abuse none. And if all men used to think and to like me, I do not believe they would not have to abuse no man, and no man will have to abuse them. You understand? Anyway, wonderful program as usual. God bless.
Thank you, caller. One thing I do have to comment on about that call, I do not believe that anybody goes out looking to be abused. I honestly don't think anyone goes out of their way to make themselves a victim. That's one thing when that's just my personal opinion. I don't think anyone goes out of their way to look towards abuse. But you are right. Abuse does happen to men as well as women, and that is one of the things that we did discuss, myself and Rochelle Duncan and Dr. Gishad Pine, that men are a part of this domestic and gender-based violence. We have a caller. Caller, you're live on Voices. Greetings.
Quickly, well, thanks for responding positively to that, Mr. Politics, because a woman reject you as a good man and make a choice to go to a gangster, whoever, and things happen to her. It don't mean that is her fault. Of course not. She just made her choice, and her choice happened to be somebody who abused women. You know, it's not because she don't stay in a relationship with you or any other man who feel like they're better than another man. No, of course not. So don't think that way. No woman causing abuse on themselves in them way there. So please, come off of that kind of meditation there. I beg you, my brother. It don't go so. Don't go so at all. And I would like to remind all and sundry, not just Sam down, as I was reminded. I'd like to remind all and sundry that we are the government, you know, the administration. run things from the offices, but we are the government. So we have to do what we have to do, as the masses of the people. Yeah, just like that. And keep things in line, or keep them and things in line. The administration, that is. Give thanks to the reason.
All right.
And we just pray that positive things come out of it. There's sometimes people just say we talk too much, but we have to keep talking. We have to keep talking. Of course, we need action. We need action more than talking right now, but we have to keep talking. Have to keep reasoning. Give thanks again. Blessed love.
Thank you, caller. And another point that was brought up as it relates to men not reporting their cases of abuse. And I think I touched on it with my earlier interview with Dr. Kishard, and we had a discussion about it as for some reason people have or struggle with seeking help because they think seeking help is a form of weakness. And I think it's even doubled down as it relates to men, because for some reason men are supposed to be this symbol of strength, and the fact that they are being abused is even seen as further weakness too. So to acknowledge that abuse and then to seek help, it might be a bit difficult for some people or some men to deal with. In the earlier address from Minister Hamilton, he gave some statistics concerning reported domestic violence cases. In 2018, 120 cases were reported, 87 in 2019. And during the 6-month period, the peak of COVID-19, January to June 2020, 106 cases were reported during that period, which indicates that during the pandemic resulted in an increase, some reports are saying. However, that begs the question of how many instances of domestic and gender-based violence are not being reported. And it goes back to the fact that seeking help is seen as a weakness. Also, in the address, Hamilton talked about the 16-day Activism Campaign on the Island Federation, and it is ongoing until December 10th. Yesterday was a panel discussion and the mock youth parliament session where they discussed sexual harassment bill. On Friday, that's tomorrow, in the Independence Square, there's an installation entitled Display of Silent Witnesses, figurines of deceased victims of domestic violence, and a domestic violence pledge board where people can sign indicating support in the fight against domestic and gender-based violence. And on November 30th, there's a presentation of partial scholarships to 2 survivors of domestic violence who are now attending tertiary institutions. And then when we move into December, the Department of Gender Affairs on St. Kitts in collaboration with the Nevis Department of Gender Affairs is hosting a Wear Orange Day, which is orange is the awareness color for gender and domestic violence. So Wear Orange Day, encouraging the public to wear orange. And the Nevis will also display the Silent Witnesses installation and have their own domestic violence pledge board. And then finally, another panel discussion addressing the family on December 9th, which is the day before Human Rights Day, on December 10th, closing the campaign. However, hopefully not bringing a close to the fight against domestic and gender-based violence. A lot of the times these discussions come up when something is happening, when there's an international day or when there's something specific. However, I feel that these should be discussions, a fight that is continually ongoing, continually to the forefront, so that people are aware of the resources, they're aware that the general public and the community care about these issues. And one last thing before I leave this afternoon's edition of Voices. Mr. Hamilton also talked about some hotlines that are available. The Special Victims Unit hotline, which is 665-3091, and another hotline for the Department of Gender Affairs, 662-5492. These are resources, some resources, maybe not all, but some resources that are available to people who are seeking help in situations that seem inescapable. This has been another edition of Voices. I have been your host, Kevon Brown, and thank you for